Hi, BookTube. I'm sitting in my main study. This is where I come to retreat from the maddening crowd. Heck, years ago, my wife's into when she goes to the post office to buy stamps. She always likes those sheets of stamps, like, I don't know. Anyway, years ago, she gave me this sheet of stamps, 20th century poets. There you have Brooks, Williams, Stevens, Bishop. So, William Carlos Williams, Wallace Stevens, Elizabeth Bishop, Sylvia Plath, Joseph Bronsky. So I keep these up on my bookshelf. Yeah, also years ago, before I had to get regular glasses, I wore reading glasses all the time. And my wife had a nurse at the hospital make this little thing for my reading glasses. It's kind of broken, but anyway. I never wore it because it was too heavy, but I keep it on my bookshelf. So what I wanted to mention in this little video is something I had a dream the other night, and it reminded me of that question that was asked in Got to Know Your Book Tag. One of the questions was Question 10, a book that was so good that you dreamt about it. Well, other night, I had this really intense spiritual dream. And I mentioned it in I think in my journal. Let me see here. Find the exact reference in my diary. Oh, let me see if I can find it. Let me see. I think it was Friday night. Let me see. It was Friday morning. I can't find it now. Maybe it was Saturday morning. Or let me see here. I don't know why I can't find it now. Anyway, I was having this dream. And in this dream, I kept repeating this line. And I woke up remembering where I read it from. And I had read it from... Wait a minute. I know what the problem is. No, it's not. No, the problem is I can't find it. So I was repeating this line in this dream, and it was like, oh, where is it? What's today? Today is, I thought it was Friday I had the dream, but it must have been earlier I had this dream. Where is it? It is maddening. So I had this dream where I was saying this line, I went out, I went out, I went out. I don't know, I can't find it. I don't know why I cannot find it. So I had this dream where I kept saying over and over in this dream, I went out, I went out. And it was a line from St. John of the Cross, from his treatise called the Spiritual Canticle. And I thought I'd just read it to you. Where it's the first stanza of this mystical poem. It says here, stanza between the soul and the bridegroom. Bride, where have you hidden, beloved, and left me moaning? You fled like the stag After wounding me, I went out calling you, and you were gone. So I kept saying, I went out, I went out, I went out in my dream. And then when I woke up, I remembered that it was a line from St. John of the Cross. And I got it out, and this is what I read. It says, you fled like the stag. It is noteworthy that the canticle, the bride compares the bridegroom to the stag and the mountain goat. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 9. She makes this comparison not only because he is withdrawn and solitary and flees from the companions like the stag, but also because of the swiftness with which he shows, then hides himself. He usually visits devout souls in order to gladden and enliven them, and then leaves in order to try and humble and teach them. Because of his visits, he withdraws and are left. His withdrawals are felt with keener sorrow, as is evident in the following verse. After wounding me, this is like saying, the pain and sorrow I ordinarily suffer in your absence was not enough for me, but having afflicted upon me a deeper wound of love with your arrow and increasing my desire to see you, you flee as swiftly as the stag, and do not let yourself be captured even for a moment. The further explanation of this verse, it should be known that besides the many other different kinds of visits God grants to the soul, in which he wounds and raises it up in love, he usually bestows some secret touches of love which like fiery arrows pierce and wound it, leaving it wholly cauterized by the fire of love. And these wounds mentioned here are properly called wounds of love. They so inflame the will in its affection that it burns up in this flame in the fire of love. So intense is this burning that the soul is seemingly consumed in that flame, and the fire makes it go out of itself, wholly renews it, and changes its manner of being, as in the case of the phoenix, which burns itself in the fire and raises anew from the ashes. David said in this regard, quote, my heart was inflamed, my reins have been changed, and I was brought to nothing and knew not. Psalm 72, verses 21 through 22. The appetites and affections which the prophet refers to as reins are all changed to divine ones in that inflammation of the heart. And the soul through love is brought to nothing and knows nothing save love. The changing of these reins at this time is accompanied by a kind of immense torment and yearning to see God. So extreme is this torment that love seems to be unbearably rigorous with the soul. Not because he has wounded her, she rather considers these wounds to be favorable to her health, but because he left her thus suffering with love, and did not slay her for the sake of her seeing and being united with him in the life of perfect love. And stressing or declaring her sorrow, she says, after wounding me, that is leaving me thus wounded, thus dying with wounds of love for you, you have hidden as swiftly as the stag. This feeling is so strong because in that love wound which God produces in the soul, the affection of the will rises with suddenly rapidity toward the possession of the beloved, whose touch was felt just as quickly as she feels his absence and the impossibility of possessing him here as she wants. And together with this feeling, she experiences moaning after his absence. These visits are not like others in which God refreshes and satisfies the soul. He bestows these wounds more than heal and afflict more than satisfy, since they serve to stimulate knowledge and increase the appetite. Consequently, the sorrow and longing to see God. These are termed spiritual wounds of love and are very delightful and desirable. The soul would desire to be ever dying 1,000 deaths from these thrusts of the lance, for they make her go out of herself and enter into God. She explains, and this in the following verse, I went out calling you, and you were gone. No medicine can be gotten for these wounds of love except from the one who causes them. Thus the wounded soul, strengthened from the fire caused by the wound, went out after her beloved who wounded her, calling for him that he might heal her. This spiritual departure, it should be pointed out, refers to two ways of going after God. One consists of departure from all things, affected through a contempt for them. The other in going out from oneself through self-forgetfulness, which is achieved by the love of God. When the love of God really touches the soul, as we are saying, it so raises it up that it not only impels her to go out from self in this forgetfulness, but it even draws her away from her natural supports, manners, and inclinations, and thus inducing her to call after God. Accordingly, this verse is like saying, "My spouse, in that touch and wound of your love, you have not only drawn my soul away from all things, but have also made it go out from self. Indeed, it even seems that you draw it out of the body, and you have raised it up to yourself, while it was calling after you, now totally detached, so as to be attracted to you. And you were gone," is like saying, "At the time I desired to hold fast to your presence, I did not find you, and the detachment from one without attachment to the other left me suspended in air and suffering without any support from you or from myself." What the soul refers to as going out in search of the beloved, the bride of the Song of Solomon calls rising. "I will rise and seek him whom my soul loves, my going about the city through the squares and the suburbs. But," she adds, "I did not find him, and they wounded me." The raising of the soul of the bride is spiritually understood of rising from the lowly to the sublime. The same is understood the soul's words here, "I went out," that is, from her lowly manner and love to sublime love of God. Yet the bride states that she was wounded because she did not find him. And the soul also declares that she was wounded with love and that he left her thus. The loving soul lives in constant suffering at the absence of her beloved, for she has already surrendered to him and hopes the reward of that surrender, the surrender of the beloved to her. Yet he does not do so. Now lost to herself and to all things for sake of her beloved one, she has gained nothing from her loss, since she did not possess him. The suffering and the pain arising from God's absence is usually so intense in those who are nearing the state of perfection at the time of those divine wounds that if the Lord did not provide, they would die. Since the the taste of their will is healthy and the spirit is cleansed and well prepared for God, they have been given some of the sweetness of divine love, which they desire beyond all measure. They suffer immeasurably, for an immense good is shown them as through the crack of a rock, but not granted them. Thus their pain and torment is unspeakable. So that's what was in my dream. I thought I'd just share that. That's all I wanted to share this morning. I made a video last night about used book haul. Tonight, this is Sunday morning. This is the 12th of March. It is morning. It is going on 11 o'clock here at morning here in West Michigan. I thought I'd just share this reading from St. John the Cross, the Spiritual Canticles, stanza 1, which says, I just read it, it says, I gotta find it again. I gotta find it what the stanza was. "Where have you hidden, my beloved?" This is the bride speaking to the bridegroom. "Where have you hidden, beloved, and left me moaning? You fled like the stag after wounding me. I went out calling you, and you were gone." Well, with that, I will close, hoping you will have a good new week. Until next time, bye.